All right, welcome back. Back for more, as Rat would say on Inappropriate, Earl, where we interview people from the world of comedy, pornography, acting, sports, UFC stars, the faded freaks from the LA scene. Today we have one of the most controversial figures in the world of LA stand-up. I've seen audience members want to kill this guy. Saw last night at the Comedy Store. He got a fellow female comic into a Ultimate Warrior like roid rage, and we started off not really vibing, but now we're like good buds. So
See, I didn't know that, Earl.
Well,
I always thought we were friends.
Oh, we were, but so Dave Taylor in the house, you hear him.
Let me interrupt this for a second here, Earl. I always thought we were friends. I always said great things about you. I'm like, yeah, that Earl and I get along great. And then to find out we weren't vibing, this tells you all you need to know about me. I would have said Earl and I vibe, which says a lot about you, Earl, as a person, that you have a gift for everybody thinking that they are vibing with you, even when you're secretly thinking, that guy's a real Palmer.
Well, that's probably my best talent in the world of comedy is that, I don't like a few people, and they have no clue.
That's very smart. So now everybody's going to think maybe they're the ones.
Right, But like when I say you and I didn't vibe at first, my first memory of you is, like I told you last night, I walked into the back of Psychobabble Cafe, where you and Nick Youssef were at the back table talking, and you guys saw me walk in. You looked at me like, you just gave me such a look of utter apathy. Like, oh.
Maybe it was like, that's Earl. I like Earl. Or it was, if I didn't know you, it was like, well, it's a new guy. I mean,
yeah, we didn't know each other well.
But I've always been pro Earl Skakel from the days of the Hot Wired.
Absolutely, I've been pro Dave Taylor. And my second memory of you was when I put you up at the Hot Wired. You had walked in. I'm like, oh my god, that's the guy from the Comedy Store. I know he can get the audience kind of riled up. And I remember just going right up.
Get him off the stage early.
I remember going right up to you. Hey man, I'm gonna put you up next. And I remember you wishing cancer on the audience. And I'm like, wow, this guy's great.
The Hot Wire. The Hot Wire, if you remember, was run by that guy who ran the Top Fuel also. He ran like multiple...
George.
Yes, multiple coffee shops. George was a recovering heroin addict, then a practicing heroin addict, then he owned no more coffee shops.
Well, I remember at Top Fuel the one night I was there, someone threw a sandwich at Brian Dowell.
Oh, Top Fuel, I remember George once leaped the counter because he said, that's the 20th time that you've made fun of our coffee shop. And I said, wow, George, I didn't know you could count that high. And then he leaped the counter and tried to threaten me, but he was like 5'5" and he with the shirt off. George's major fighting move, I don't know if you remember this, was he would pick fights with people who would say, I can't fight you. I have 2 strikes already.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure he had more than that.
Well, George, he got together with this one girl, and then she kind of pulled him back into heroin. Not that he was unhappy, but they'd go in the back room, and I always thought they should have like a special novelty syringe, like you'd sell at Spencer's, that made like a ooga sound when you shot it, because if we heard that, the back room would just be made those sounds.
Well, I mean, I had his buddy do the tile work in the bathroom here.
How was it?
Well, I gave him $500 cash, and the next day he never showed up. All his
Wait, you gave a drug addict's friend cash in advance of the work?
Well, no, he started.
Oh, okay.
And at the end of the day, he's like, hey, man, I'm going to need some more money for the supplies or something. So I went to Citibank on the corner. I gave him $500 cash, and I never saw him again.
You never saw him again. Did you ever get the tile work finished?
No, I just left it as is. It was a pretty good job. I mean, he did good work.
But just only half of it.
Well, he left all his gear on the patio, so I'm like,
figured, I'm clear.
Well, I'll just hold his... I'll hold it ransom.
So he never came back for the gear. Never finished the work. He just disappeared.
He did come back. He climbed over the balcony. I don't know when. Took all his gear back, and then I've never seen him since. Matt, if you're out there, you got to come back and finish.
So he stole his gear back off his balcony. Sounds like this is a move he might have done before.
Well, he told me I was funny at the Hot Wired, so I thought, well, this guy's trustworthy.
See, that's immediately when I stopped trusting people if they praise me.
Was that my phone or your phone?
That was your phone.
I better, I strive for the highest in sound quality here, at Inappropriate Earl. So I'm turning off my phone. I made a boo-boo. I erased 3 episodes last night by accident.
Ooh, which 3?
Luckily, the lost episode with Carlos Herrera and Sandy Danto.
That can be refound. Carlos and Sandy can be refound.
Well, they said they would come back, and then I had a great episode last week with 2 comedy buddies who are more Valley comics.
Who?
Chris Ramirez and Cole Young.
Okay.
Who I don't think they
don't
really
know them,
weren't.
but that says nothing about them. It's more about me. I'm not really around the scene.
Well, it was great because it was 2.5 hours, and it was just, you know, you might be a good person to ask this. So I put the sound card, or the sound card. What do you call those little things?
The flash drive.
The flash drive into the recorder.
Yeah.
And it says fragment disc, and I didn't know what that meant.
Oh no!
So I'm like, yeah, sure.
And then you just formatted it.
There's no way to get that back.
There is, I think, if you use there's apps you can use to maybe get it off.
Because
the problem is that, do you really want to spend the time to pull that off?
Well, it wouldn't be me spending the time. It would be me paying someone to.
You can just. I think if you use the program Test Disk, there's a chance you can get that stuff off. It's not 100%. It's a big file, so maybe not. But
because what I notice is when I put it in to record your episode, it says there are 32 hours left on a 50-hour card. So
I think the files are in there. You just got to get them off.
So, but that's not why I had you on the show. I mean, you are
Believe me, if that's why, it's not a very good reason. Although having me on as a guest probably isn't a good reason either.
Yeah, but I was a big fan of your YouTube videos. Science with David Taylor.
You're the only one. Let's talk rock literature here. How is the Stephen Pearcy book? Now, you live with him. No, that's the guy from Rat. You live with the guy from
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Let's talk. Okay, for my money, the best rock book out there is Slash's book.
I read it.
Utterly fascinating. So good that I read it 3 pages at a time with Amazon. You know, they had the 3-page sample. You'd read 3 pages, you get to the last page, and then you'd search for something on that page so you could read the next 3 pages. And I read a good chunk of that book.
Well, my friend, the great Brent Fitz, who I know you don't know, he drums for Slash now.
What does he say about it? I'm curious.
He loves Slash.
Really?
You got to understand, Brent was... he was doing the equivalent of almost music open mics.
And then Slash picked him up?
He's a great drummer. So.
I'm not saying he isn't, but Slash found him?
Yeah, Slash.
Oh, so of course you're going to have loyalty.
He was, I remember going to see him play in Eagle Rock on Sunday nights in front of 2 people. And
how did he meet Slash?
He was in a band called Union, which was just a decade too late. The boat had sailed with the old guitar player from Kiss, Bruce Kulick.
Here's a pause here. When I was in Madrid, Spain in 1999, I backpacked through Europe. You know, I was out of software for a little while. I had a little bit of money. I backpacked through Europe. And I ended up meeting these 2 Canadian twins randomly. The only two people I really met in Europe. I met them on the train, and then they put me up in their place. They were very nice. Anyway, we ended up going through Madrid, and they had made friends because they weren't antisocial like me. So they had a bunch of friends. And we spent a night going to clubs in Madrid, which maybe the only night I've ever gone to clubs ever. But there was a Spanish language rap star, was one of the people. But another was a very pretty woman who was engaged to the bassist from Man O' War. Remember the band Man O' War? And she was adamant. She's like, metal is coming back. It's coming back. And that was 1999. I remember seeing Lita Ford in those 1990s. She'd be on MTV, like going, metal's coming back. That woman from metal. People have thought metal's coming back for a long time, and it's kind of like stand-up comedy in that everybody always thinks the boom's going to come again, but the boom ain't coming.
Well, the great A&R man, maybe the most famous A&R guy ever, John Kolodner, who, if you've
money, the most famous A&R man ever is Gerardo.
Well, who was great in Can't Buy Me Love with Court McCowan.
Was Gerardo in Can't Buy Me Love?
He was the good-looking Mexican guy with the short hair.
Whoa, Gerardo was in I had no idea. That was years before Rico Suave.
Oh, yeah. It was Can't Buy Me Love came out in 87. So
87, and then
Rico
maybe
Suave
2
came
years.
out like 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but John Kolodner was the guy, if you've ever seen the Dude Looks Like a Lady video.
Yes.
he's the guy who was dressed up as the bride, and he turns around and he's got the beard.
Oh, good for Aerosmith for giving the R man.
Well, he saved them. He saved their careers. Yeah. He hooked them up with Desmond Child, who wrote all their hits.
Oh, and then remember the thing that was that
Alicia
Walker's
Silverstone.
Way.
That was the first.
That's got to be Desmond Child.
But that was John Kalodner saying you guys should work with the Run DMC. They're like, I mean, he helped Bob.
Never, when that song came out, would you think that the band that would be popular through the 90s would have been Aerosmith and not Run DMC?
I mean, they were at death's door in the 80s, bankrupt.
I didn't even know who they were.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't. Out of creative ideas.
Then they got hooked up with Diane Warren.
Yeah. Diane Warren and Desmond Child saved their careers. Yeah. And Slash's book was great.
John Kalodner, though, A&R man, you were
John Kalodner saved. You were talking about metal coming back. He in 1999 started a record label called Portrait Records, where he had Rat, Cinderella, and I think one more 80s band do a record, and it just didn't work.
It's too bad.
And if he can't make it work, it ain't working. So.
Yeah. Well, the problem, too, is you can't have it be based on bands that are 10 years old. You have to have new metal bands, but nobody's going to do that.
Well, I mean, you can't people always, because I lived basically on the Strip in the 80s. I was in the middle of the ditty, and
I imagine a lot of leather, were tattoos as big? They were big, right?
You just can't recreate that era, man. Tattoos weren't, they were prevalent, but it was just from Doheny to the Comedy Store. It was like an ant farm of pussy.
Really?
And just horny guys, and this is, before MySpace or the internet, really.
Now, I imagine you being about 30 or 40 pounds heavier, more muscle than the rest of these guys. For my money, I picture metal guys as all 5'9", 120, strung out, but ready to fight.
They have like Matt Edgar bodies.
Yes, exactly.
But not nearly as good looking. Just real dirt balls.
Yeah, skinny. Matt Edgar is skinny in the way that even his legs are skinny. All of Matt Edgar is just skinny. He's not like a big legs but a skinny top. He's just Matt looks like a straw.
He
looks like something that would be stop motion animated in a Tool video.
I think he was in the Aha video, Take On Me. Nice keyboards there.
It's a great video.
But they asked Stephen Pearcy, whose book is on that Right By You. They said, well, what did you think about the 99 record you did with John Kalodner? He's like, well, he tried to make us sound like the Cars. And
Wait, the Cars when? The Cars in the 80s?
Yeah. Well, they had the keyboards. And
that's the problem. That sound was only really popular in the 80s, too. Even Rick Ocasek, who produced at that point, wasn't trying to make his band sound like the Cars.
Well, I mean, I did get one of my favorite concerts ever was about 2 years ago. I saw the Cars at the Palladium. It was everyone but Benjamin Orr.
Yeah.
And
I was about to say, did Benjamin Orr make a guest appearance?
Well, I thought they could have done the Tupac thing where they do the.
No, they don't have Coachella money. Cars reunion tour does not have hologram money. They maybe could have done remember the old Scooby Doo when they'd have a projector and it'd be oh, it wasn't a ghost, it was really just a projector. They could do hologram. They might have been able to 2D.
If you ever want to see something really sad, I think 6 days before Benjamin Orr died, they did a DVD. It was the first time up until that point. I think it was about 96, 97, that the Cars had reunited on interviews form, and he's just a skeleton, man.
So it reminds me of Rat. Speaking of Stephen Pearcy, when you watch the interviews with the guy from Rat, Robin Crosby, the one who was dating Tawny Katane, and he says at one point, he goes, he's talking about how his metabolism has been fucked up by medication. He says something really poignant, and he doesn't understand what's poignant about it. He goes, it's really fucked up because I can't eat anything, but my roommate can eat everything he wants and be 130 pounds. What he doesn't understand is the really sad part of that phrase is my roommate.
Right.
This guy was
the king,
and now he's just some dude living in Hollywood with a roommate.
Well, in his, form of, disease he got bigger.
Well, yeah, because I think it was, what happened, it was something where, he had AIDS, and then they destroyed his immune system, and then...
But most people get skinnier.
True, but I think they might have put him on prednisone. They might have just destroyed his thyroid with medication.
But Tawny had the best story about when he was on his way out that she would go visit him and bring him peppermint schnapps. Like he's like, hey, can you just sneak me? And that you could tell. It was neat about the Tawny interview was you could still tell that was and will always be the love of her life.
Well, absolutely. Also because she's remembering him when he was in high school and young and vital. Now, to my mind, it could be that O.J. Simpson could be the only person. She'd be the only person who O.J. Simpson saved the life. I think O.J. Simpson is basically, 2-in-1 when it comes to murder, because yes, he killed those two people, but the story on VH1 was that Robin Crosby was about to have sex with Tawny, and O.J. showed up, was all jealous. He goes, I don't think so. Who knows what shape Tawny would have been in if O.J. hadn't had the chivalry,
the face of Rat,
and save her from an uncertain biological trauma.
Well, that was the only, I love Tawny, and that was the only person she wouldn't talk about.
Well, yeah, because that's her true love.
So, she wouldn't even mention.
I love Tawny too. I think she's great.
Oh my God! Just she was a great interview.
I'm looking forward to the second.
There will be
Earl with Tawny.
Well, my favorite part of the interview was she's talking about Robin dying, and it's a sad story. It's just, and you could tell she's starting to well up.
Yeah.
And Gail, and this is why I wanted her on the show. It was like, Tawny, I know how you feel. I lost a cat once, and it was like
that cat was important, probably feline AIDS. So there you go.
Well, I'm not sure. We'll cover a lot of those unanswered questions later. I mean, I've cried more when I put down my dogs than I did at my parents' funerals.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The last.
Well, is it because you felt responsible for your dogs?
It's horrible to see like with the last dog before Lois, Chloe. I named her after the
porn actress,
the character on 24.
Oh, I thought the porn actress who was a
Chloe Belladonna
back in the day.
She would start having these baby heart attacks, and it was just the worst thing in the world to see. And it was like you could see them.
By the way, we can agree that baby heart attacks are the most adorable heart attacks.
Well, I mean, but speaking of heart attacks, this episode is dedicated to Jim Hellwig, who the ultimate warrior towards the latter end of his life, who passed away.
Who could have seen that coming?
54-year-old man dying of a heart attack.
Unbelievable. Earl, if years and years and years of steroid abuse,
allegedly, I'd like to think he was natural.
I would like to argue that the people making the allegations or anybody looking at his body, if that can cause heart problems, then I just don't simply understand the human body. If cocaine and steroids can cause problems with the lining in your heart, then I don't understand anatomy or biology.
Well, you're a very smart guy, probably the smartest guy I know.
Thank you, but that's probably not true.
Well, it is, but I don't. You got to understand my group of friends. I mean, it's not. It's like saying you're the skinniest girl on The Biggest Loser. It's
well, now with that girl with the eating disorder, who knows?
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to watch the last season on the IMAX screen. They got so goddamn big.
Speaking of, by the way, your TV is nice, but it looks like it might be time to upgrade it to a flat screen.
Yeah, it's old school. I mean,
you guys could see it. He does the trick with the. It's got the giant back, so he has it in the corner, and it eats up a lot of real estate. The room would be a lot bigger if you had a flat screen. Turn it this way.
Well, what I'm going to do is the bulb's about to burn out in this.
When you do, you're going to get rid of it?
When I know Samsung has a smart TV.
Oh yeah, those are great.
Where you could get like Netflix. I don't even have
Netflix. But Earl, you can just get a regular. If I were you, I'd get just a regular, not smart TV, because you can pay about $1,000 less for a regular big screen LCD, and then get a Chromecast stick or a Roku. It does all the things a smart TV does, and the smart TV thing is just a cheat, so you have to pay $1,000 more.
I mean, my friend has one of those Samsung things. And,
I thought can you get a deal?
A lady friend, and
Earl, trust me.
No, I agree.
Get a flat, big, nice quality. Samsung TVs are very nice.
I just want the biggest screen possible.
Yeah, get the biggest screen possible. If it's not a Samsung, which I don't think it will be, get a fucking Chromecast stick or Roku. It'll be just as easy. It works great.
I might have to take you with me because I go to Best Buy and they don't know what they're talking about.
I wouldn't
there.
go. Yeah, Best Buy, you're paying a lot more too.
Paul's big screen. I think he's. There, I used to go on Pico. There was a place called Cranes.
I remember that.
Ken Cranes.
Yeah,
and they were great. They were professional.
Are they out of business?
Yeah. I think it's like I don't know. I think it's a vacant.
I remember them actually because
they were great. But the people who worked there were professional TV salesmen. They weren't actors. None of them had any hobbies, but they lived fucking
Here's the
TVs.
problem. You can just fucking order this shit online, get it come in a box.
Yeah, but I don't know how to install it.
You know, the hard thing's going to be getting that thing out of here. Like, my friend had one of these giant TVs, although he had a real small apartment, and he just had to, he just gave it away and said the cost is you have to carry it out, and that was hard.
Well, the last TV I had was bigger than this.
Really?
And it was on rollers, so I just...
How big is this one?
This is 70 inches.
You had a bigger than 70-inch TV?
The one I had before was like 85.
Wow.
It was massive, but it was on rollers, so when it was time to get... It was just time to get a new one.
My projector is 100, but 85 that's impressive.
Yeah, it was nice. It was great to watch hockey on.
Also,
sports.
because tube TV quality, until recently, tube was the best picture you could have.
What is the best TV now? Like,
I would argue that the tube TV was way ahead of everything for a long time. I mean, because the picture quality is fantastic. Even if for a projector, you'd wanted tube projectors, but now I think just a good LCD is just as good. The blacks are just as good.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm a big TV junkie.
If I were you, I don't know how. Do you use that fireplace?
No, it's fake. It's a
okay,
fake one.
Perfect. Then if I were you, I would
hang it up,
measure it out, figure it out, because it might be too big to put up there. But you might not. You just basically find the studs and then hang it up. It could even jut out a little bit. And then I would put it right there and then you have a lot more space to put stuff in there.
That reminds me when I went to the gay hardware store to...
I've been... The one on WeHo? What?
Kuntz.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I've been.
It's the best hardware store in the city, I think. It's not the biggest, but they know it's like the Ken Cranes. Like,
yeah.
There's not one actor working there. They're all fucking old, hardcore hardware thing.
I like Home Depot because you just go, you get stuff, you figure it out yourself.
See, I'm not smart enough to figure it out on my own.
There's not much to... I mean, look, people... Like plumbing, that's difficult. But when it comes to hanging something, you find studs and you hang stuff off them.
But I'm not the brightest guy. And
it's simple. There are boards in your wall called studs. That's how you hang stuff.
But when
you find them and drill in.
But when I went to the gay hardware store, I'm in line, and I said to the guy behind the counter, I'm like, I need the biggest stud finder I can get. And the gay guy behind me is like, I bet you do. And I'm like, okay.
Did you wink? I'll tell you what, the gays have always liked you.
I'm gay friendly. I live in a very gay neighborhood.
Remember, there was that one. You've had gay managers that were interested in you. I remember.
Well, I had the head of casting that I don't want to say the studio name.
You're going to prepare your Bryan Singer lawsuit.
Well, I mean, it wasn't quite on that level. I was a little too old in the game to get invited to those twink parties.
That's too bad, man.
Well,
you know who must be really jealous of that is Carlos Herrera, because he's just a head of hair and about 5 years away from being in those twink parties.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Carlos was on the VIP list for those.
Yeah, but then he lost all his hair, and there are no bald twinks.
That's crazy. But I know, I don't blame Bryan Singer. If
those lawsuits, by the way, the lawsuits are bullshit. And also, yeah, exactly. Nobody, logically, why would you blame Bryan Singer for having a party full of hot people he wanted to fuck? Anybody would do that. With the difference is most dudes, percentage-wise, most dudes would have hot young girls. But if it's hot young boy, that's what he likes, then go ahead, man.
I mean, it's not illegal being gay in Hollywood.
No, and the guys were of legal age. I think those lawsuits are bullshit, or homophobic bullshit.
These guys who probably couldn't act.
Yeah.
He probably gave them auditions and was like, I can't.
Also, I think the guy is already aged out of his twink life, and now he doesn't have as much value. He's trying to make a lawsuit to collect money, but the problem is the joke's on him, because Hollywood is the one city where being exposed as a powerful homosexual is not a problem at all. This isn't like a lawsuit in Lincoln, Nebraska. This isn't a scandal. This is just something that will be dealt with and then go away.
Well, when the Drudge Report's not covering it full steam, I mean...
also, why the Drudge Report isn't covered at full steam.
Well, I know that there's...
the Drudge would have loved to be at one of those parties.
I
wonder if he was at those
was at those parties. I mean, I went to one party like that. It wasn't a twink party, I've been to a lot of pussy parties in my time. Cause,
never, when I was that age, first of all, I was ugly. Second of all, I was in Silicon Valley. So it was a lot of dudes, but it was mostly sad dudes and like 3 girls. And it was just not a fun sex vibe.
But see, my friends, before I started comedy, I ran with Bryan Singer types, but straight versions.
Yeah.
And these guys lived. I've never met a group of guys who single-handedly, their whole pursuit in weekends was to get laid.
It is also incredible when you see anybody who's single-minded about anything. It's almost like admirable.
And they played hard. I mean, they worked hard. I mean, they worked at the big agencies,
Yeah.
the ICMs, William Morris's, CAs. But they were big producers, on, young, hot producers. But when the weekends came, it was like you never met a group of guys more single-handedly devoted to the thrill of just abusing women, gangbangs. So it's just like whenever I would give girlfriends of mine advice about the business, it's like, hey, I ran with a real wild group of guys. I was there because I was sober. I was a big guy. So
this sounds like the real life version of Only the Good Die Young.
That's a good Journey song too.
They have their own version of
Only the Young. I'm sorry, I'm missing my musical. I'm not Barris. Barris will name you he's unbelievable with his musical knowledge.
Oh yeah, I've heard it.
But so I'd go to these reverse twink parties where there was just old hags and just actresses who just given up and making it, but they were ripe for the takedown. Oh. Hi, you're an actress. Well, why don't we have an audition at my house tomorrow?
How old are we talking?
30s.
Wow, that's.
I mean, you ain't a twink anymore at 30.
No, you're not. So they were ready to be exploited.
Oh, absolutely. And I would, I'd get the runoff. I'd get the slob friend or, the fat friend who wasn't an actress. And, so I've been exposed to the world of bullshit by the best bullshitters ever.
Oh, absolutely.
So when I give these young female comics advice, like, when, like I have a friend, I won't say their name. She was recently approached by a very A-list actor. I mean, the elite of the elite. A text, hey, blank, why don't you come over and read scripts with me?
Okay, I'm no expert, but my guess is that there might have been an ulterior motive to this script reading session. What time was the text sent?
In the early evening.
I dated a girl. I don't want to say who it is.
Absolutely.
Who is a very, very beautiful girl. And she had similar stories, like an A-list actor wanted to just take her home. She said no. And I was like, well, the joke's on you because you ended up with me. There was another guy who was not an A-list actor. We'll say B-level. But his line was like, do you want to come back to my place and have a grilled cheese sandwich? It was a grilled cheese sandwich or a milkshake. I think it might have been a milkshake. I can't remember.
Bet.
But that was his line with her. So the script. Wait, there's a larger question here beyond the scripts. How did they exchange phone numbers?
Well, let me see. Without he had saw her at a show, and oh, you're funny, all that, and then and she is actually. So
she gave.
They exchange information.
Hold on, let's take it back another step. She met an A-list actor, and she gave him her phone number. To me, I'm no expert on male-female interaction. To me, that implies some sort of interest on her part.
Well, she really was more interested in,
career
maybe this guy. Yeah, but, maybe he'll look at my videos, scripts, so on. She had no sexual inclination.
If this is the girl who I'm thinking of, can I make a larger point? I think it's the girl
It's not, though.
It's not the girl I'm thinking of?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. Well, then, without knowing who it is, because there are some women that I've met who are very charming, but they give off a vibe of being sexually interested in literally everyone. Not even a slutty vibe. Just there. I know certain girls, I would say female comics, that are really good at when you meet them, your first thought is like, oh, well, they want to have sex with me. And then you have like 15 friends going, I really have a crush on that girl. You're like, oh, they're giving that vibe to literally everyone else.
But so
and you know how you can tell like that's what it is I have an autistic friend and he's like the test when he goes like, I really don't like that girl at all. It's like, definitely, then that's what it was.
The great Josh Meyer was.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pretty impressive.
Well, I'm like the only area in life that I'm probably truly smart in is the art of the scam. and coincidentally, this guy's girlfriend was out of town the night of the script reading night.
Here's the thing: when you get to that level, they don't have to be out of town. It's like, I know, they have hotel money. They live in a level of success that is beyond morality. That the only bounds are in their own head. He could easily say, "Let's meet at a hotel bar to read scripts," and then, "Oh, look, I have a room." I mean, that's the incredible thing.
But then the girlfriend's back in town now, and the calls have stopped.
Really?
And so it's like, well, so and so. What do you think that means?
Well, now here's my question. The girl knew immediately, because the girl I dated, who was very, again, very beautiful, she knew. She wasn't stupid. She knew instantly what all these things meant. I'm assuming the girl's hanging out with you. She knew the same thing. Now, the problem is we all want to believe something. How much of her, question, percentage-wise, how much of her believed that there was a chance that he really just wanted to read scripts with her?
Oh, a big percent. I would say probably 70%.
Oh, she's going to get chewed up.
Well, and this goes back to my background of the scam. I saw my friends just...
this reminds me of that W.C. Fields quote, "You can't cheat an honest man."
Yeah.
And, that's what it's about. Implicit in that is that she thought she was going to game him, that she was going to get career help. But unfortunately, he's the one with the leverage.
I mean, I really want to teach not a stand-up comedy class because I'm not qualified, but a class for young actresses and just call it the art of the scam. When you got a guy who says...
the joke with that would be the class itself would be a scam. So it would be like a meta...
But it wouldn't, because I would give...
Would the first class be like, don't ever do something like this again?
Don't take a class from a guy you've never heard of before. But I have a caring soul about me, and I don't like people getting scammed.
I will say this, Earl. You are a caring person, and you've been very generous. And the thing about you, too, is you will give advice to female comics and not with any ulterior motive. Almost like, I would believe that in another life you were a female comic who was scammed. Here's my pitch for a movie, right? It's kind of like The Heavenly Kid, right? Only,
oh my God,
in another life, great movie.
Jason Gedrick.
In another life, you were in a drag race, a game of chicken, but you were a female comic, and then you come back and help out a female comic, and then it turns out you were her mother.
Well, I just, there's you see it a lot at the Comedy Store. Just, I know of another comic who guys would constantly try and scam her, and I would be like, hey, so-and-so, they're just trying to fuck you. Oh, no, they think I'm funny, and it's like,
did you explain, I know that's not true because you're not funny?
Well,
so like provably.
But I mean, like, I look at my ex-girlfriend, Shelley.
Yeah.
When Gail was first coming upon the scene, Gail would laugh a lot at my jokes, and Shelley was onto her.
Girls always know if the girl you're dating always knows if another girl wants to have sex with you. That's their superpower.
But I almost turned into the female comic because when Shelley would say this, I'd be, "Oh, you don't think anyone can like me just?"
That is a very
funny.
That's not just a female comic. That's a female thing. Like, I remember the girl I was dating, again, the most beautiful girl in the world, and
hot if it's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah, she was really, really pretty and very smart too. But she would do this thing where other guys would laugh at her jokes because they were trying to have sex with her, and then she'd go, "You just don't think I'm funny." And I'm like, "No, I don't."
But she's not a comic.
No, I mean, she was just funny enough, but it's like that wasn't why the guys were laughing.
Well, I mean, I've seen every scheme done 100 times over.
You've done them.
Well, my friends did most of them. I mean, I did a few schemes. I mean, probably the best scheme I ever used to do was I would go to the King games in this is probably the late 80s when I first started getting laid.
This is a great scheme, if it's the one I'm thinking of.
And I would dress in I noticed before then that some of the hockey players would dress in these really obnoxious suits, purple suits. I remember the great Ukrainian defenseman Igor Ulanov walked out of the locker room one night in an all-yellow suit.
Sounds like Craig Sager.
Right. Yes, it's a total Craig Sager suit. And Igor Ulanov was one of my favorite players, so all that stuff. And so I thought, wait a minute, I see all these chicks around him. What if I went to, God, what was the name of the store? International Male, which was a total bone smoker clothing store. And I would buy the most obnoxious sport coats, stretch pants, Versace. I mean, it was the real deal. So I started going to the King games, and as soon as the game was over, I'd run into the bathroom. I had a packet of gel in my pocket. I'd rub it through my hair like I had just gotten out of the shower, and I would go to the Forum Club, and I got more pussy doing that scam.
This reminds me of another variation when you told the girl that you were the guitarist for Rat.
Oh, at Fantasy Island.
And then she said, wait a second. Rat's first album came in 1981. You must have been 13. Now, I would have said, oh, I was the guitarist on the last album, but this is the genius of Earl. Your line, you go, no, they don't want to sleep with somebody who's on the last album. Yeah. So then your line was?
I was a child prodigy. And if you look at Warren D. Martini, I'm not saying this girl wasn't smart, but if you look at Warren D. Martini and me, I mean, I look about as much like Warren D. Martini as I do Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, there's no resemblance at all. Now, I look like a roided out version of someone in Weezer.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not so much you look like a roided out version of somebody in Weezer, but it's just like physically you're a lot bigger than pretty much everybody. There are a few people in here. Nikki Sixx is obviously a big guy.
Big dude.
Danzig is a small dude who got muscled up.
Well, he's that total Napoleon fucking complex.
Yeah.
But I mean, one time I went to a No Doubt concert. Because Shelley, who you knew.
Yeah. By the way, you remember Warlock?
Oh my God, yeah.
Warlock was a guy who hung out at the Comedy Store. He was No Doubt's road manager when they were small, really small, like OC band. And he said he never thought the band would make it, but he always knew Gwen Stefani would make it.
She definitely has a star quality about her.
So Shelley gets you in to see a
she
No
gets
Doubt.
me into, she was working the No Doubt concert at I think the Shrine Auditorium, and I'm sitting there watching. They were okay. They were, they're all right. Not my thing, but they were listenable. And I had this herd of underage girls following me around the concert, insisting that I was the guy from Weezer.
Really?
And I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm not that guy. I think it was Rivers Cuomo.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe the taller blonde guy with the glasses.
Something Bell.
Yeah. Mike Bell, wasn't it? No.
I knew a girl hooked up with him.
Ricky Bell? No, that's the running back.
The one who died. The one.
Yeah, Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay's first draft pick.
Yeah.
Huge runner. But then I remember I saw somebody call him a flop because he ran for 12 yards. Then he was out of the league quickly. And then somebody else pointed out he died of like sarcoidosis.
Well, that reminds me of one of my favorite fantasy football moments where this moron that was in our league drafted Fred Lane after he had died. And he spent
nobody disabused him of that, right?
Yeah, we're like, no, you should. Yeah. We all started bidding on Fred Lane just because we knew this guy would get him. So he had to, in this fantasy football league, you had $150 in fake money to draft 12 players.
Yeah.
So you really had to be economical with your money. And this guy spent like $120 on Fred Lane.
Sounds like Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins.
Oh, he's out of it, but he's doing in real life. I mean,
that's the thing. Like also James Dolan, people like.
I saw that tweet. It was a brilliant tweet.
Oh, thank you.
Well, tell the audience
just that how this is how uncompetitive cable television is. James Dolan was a success in it, and this guy is like the worst owner in any sports league because also he's got a problem where the problem with salary cap leagues is that. And not a problem, but like salary cap leagues have those owners that try to come in and throw a lot of money to be a Steinbrenner. It doesn't work with a capped out league. Like that's why Jerry Jones has a problem. That's why Daniel Snyder has a problem. That's why James Dolan has a problem. They're used to having more money than everybody else and throwing it at people and making it work. But the problem is there's limits. Where Steinbrenner was able to get away with it because the baseball is such a fucked up league that the Yankees can't. Their priorities are so fucked up that they have like 3 cities that they care about, and then they're just willing to, it's New York, Boston, and whatever other big city is winning at the time. But that's why they can get away with it. But salary cap leagues, that's why you have those owners that look like real buffoons. If Steinbrenner were an owner in a capped out league, hell, he didn't win through most of the 80s. It's And the reason they came back was that he was suspended for 2 years, and then somebody else built up the farm system when he was gone.
Well, I mean, you got to I don't know who the Kings' actual owner is. I think it's Philip Anschutz. He owns so much; it's like hard to. But they do it right. I mean, even if you're not a hockey fan, you have to admire how the Kings are built. And Dean Lombardi is the GM.
Yeah. They had wasn't their GM David Taylor for a long time?
Dave Taylor was.
Yeah, I was always a fan.
I was a fan of his because he had a horrible stuttering problem. And
that's sad for him.
He forced himself to do interviews. Like
really?
He would say, "I want to, if you guys need a player to talk to, I want to do it." So he
did he get better?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely. I met him once in Westwood with his family, and I was so shy, but I'll never forget how nice he was.
Probably not as shy as he was, though. I mean, hell, both of you were stuttering.
I'm not going, Mr. Taylor, can I give him a autograph? And he answered back to me, so, I mean, it's kind of like I admire a comic up at the Comedy Store. He doesn't have a stuttering problem, but Josh Martin.
Yes, Josh Martin's the best. That guy's a warrior.
But I really admire. He gets a lot of shit because what would you say he has a speech impediment?
He doesn't have a stutter; he's a speech impediment.
But you think about the balls that takes to
does not care. Every time he opens his mouth, like people are making fun of him, but the dude just doesn't care. Last night I had two guys on stage, Jared Levin and his murder twin. And Josh Martin was in the audience. I was taking questions, and Josh says, "Yeah, I have a question for you. Who's the bald faggot on stage?" I'm like, "Josh, that's me."
That was the biggest laugh I've ever heard him get.
The biggest laugh I got of the night.
No, that's the biggest laugh I've ever heard him get.
All right, Josh will land some great shots, but then it was like, good for you, Josh.
He throws out a few bombers every now.
Absolutely.
I mean, who doesn't?
His line at that roast was the best line of the whole night.
Well, I told him that you saved your reputation.
Oh, yeah. He was getting wailed on by Alex Phillips, and then they brought on... So he's getting pounded to a point where it was like Cool Hand Luke, where it's like anybody else would have just kind of thrown in the towel. And then they brought up Russell Peters to have them make fun of him, just like fourth round. And his line about Russell Peters was, "You have the money of Jay-Z and the talent of Jay Mandiant." And it's like, how do you do that off the top of your head after getting wailed on that hard?
And then I felt bad for him because I whispered into his ear right before he said that line. And people, you gave him that line. No. I did not give him the line.
People said, I think somebody gave Josh the line. No, Josh would have told me. He absolutely would have. But
that was 100%.
Josh said that you said you should make fun of the fact that he's Indian. And Josh goes, I don't think so. But then I think that's where it brought up the J.
I said, just say something about him being Indian. It's so, but I admire people like Josh. Like, I don't think if I had a speech impediment, especially up at the Comedy Store, which is, the weak get weeded out pretty fast there.
Yeah,
you've been up there longer than me.
Oh yeah, the funny thing is that Josh hasn't gotten the worst hazing of anybody. Jimmy Pidd got the worst hazing. Jimmy Pidd was an employee at the store and a comic, really nice guy, very funny. But he was hazed for a good 5 years. I'm not exaggerating. But by the end of those 5 years, nobody was fucking with Jimmy Pidd.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a weird respect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You outlast it. So that's where Josh is. Where if you are just yourself at the store for a long time, people eventually go, "Oh, that's who he is," and then they just, you're sort of bulletproof in that way.
Like I think the night I had a few friends who'd never been to the store. I was on stage, and you might have even been asking questions. I think Tebow was throwing menus at me. Mm-hmm. Don was. Controlling the environment, and my friends were like, after, they don't like you very much here, do they? I'm like, no, that's what they do when they like you.
Oh yeah, no, Earl, you're beloved.
But if they don't like you, it's that people either leave the room or they don't say anything.
Yeah, that's the worst thing at the store is the stare over the head thing that I've learned how to use. Thank God I'm tall. It's funny, my brother was talking to me, and my brother was talking to my dad about, like, what do you do if you don't like somebody? You can't really always pick a fight with them. My dad said, what I just do is just stare over their head, because my dad's a tall guy. And my brother goes, that's what David does. And I had never talked to my dad about it, but we both did it independently. And it works really well with, like, little Esther, because if you stare over her head, the only thing you can see are the stink lines.
Well, I mean... little Esther's she's on the rise. She's a real comer, as they say in the business. She did introduce me to Dolph Ziggler, and gave me the greatest introduction to one
Dolph
of my
Ziggler?
very famous pro wrestler.
Oh, okay, because I remember Dolph Lundgren and Zig Ziglar, but I didn't know there was a Dolph Ziggler.
I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar's Southern twang, but Dolph Ziggler, very famous
Dolph
pro
Ziggler,
wrestler.
the one who dated Amy Schumer?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I don't know either.
This guy gets a lot of hot chicks, so yeah. But she gave me a very nice, and she said, "Oh, Dolph, this is my friend Earl. He's a very funny comic." And Esther had never seen me go up before, so she's a controversial figure in the world of comedy, but
Not controversial, just most people don't like her. That's not really controversial. That's more like an agreement. She's more like a consensus figure, like, her.
well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of controversial figures.
Well, controversy implies like an argument. Like,
Well, to me, it implies. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
you could say disliked. Maybe it's possible other people like her, but
She causes
at the
reactions.
store, there's a real like a monolithic consensus about her, which is just like, ugh.
I think like your brother and the dude he went up against in the roast was a controversial in the sense that they both
I see what you're saying.
the reaction. People were into that roast because it was like.
They wanted to see both of them die.
Yeah, so and it was a crazy roast. And for people out there, there's a Tuesday night show at the Comedy Store. It's basically a Yo Mama roast. Two comics getting into it. So it's
Brian Moses' roast battle.
Brian Moses and I think Rel Battle. I don't know. I think and Jeff Ross is something.
Jeff Ross is the executive.
I play the racist.
Yes.
House guest, I guess you'd call
along with
Whitney Lee Rice.
Whitney Rice, Whitney Lee Rice, the third name. That really is the best way to convey that she might be an assassin.
Well, I had to. Frankly, people were like, "Well, Earl, why'd you bring her in? Are you trying to bone her?" And that's the Comedy Store thinking of, a guy and a girl can't be friends up there unless there's some body slapping going on. But I was running out of racist things to say.
She's very good on that show with you, and you guys, in a weird way, humanize each other. And also, it's never a problem for them to bring in a girl into a show they're trying to pitch.
Well, that's what, and she's like got a lot of, she's a rising, she's hungry. I think she'll be, like, for lack of a better word, the next Esther from the standpoint of, like, getting in and with
absolutely.
people.
She's definitely tracing an upper trajectory. I think that she is the greatest climber, and I say this with respect. Whitney's the greatest climber since the greatest climber I've ever seen, Whitney Cummings.
Oh, and I always talk highly of Whitney Cummings from the standpoint of I started with her.
And no, you didn't. No, you started years before her.
Yeah.
Years before.
I don't know when. I mean, I'm assuming she started like around 2004.
Yeah, that's you. She started years after us because we started around the same time.
2000.
Yeah, exactly. She started years after us. I remember when she was at a party before I'd ever seen her comedy. She made some bad joke. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, she's famous. The greatest climber I've ever seen. It's like. You see people are natural talents at things, right? Comedy, like she's not a talent at that, but at climbing, she's amazing. Amazing.
I mean,
I've met like great writers. I've met great comedians, but in terms of climbing, she could be better at climbing than anybody else is at anything I know.
She's the Wayne Gretzky of climbers.
Yeah, she really is. In that, like, Gretzky's move was to go behind the goal, and he kind of saw things from a different way. She's amazing at it because she's able to climb using the people underneath her, which you have to do. Like some climbers try to just climb using the people above them, and it doesn't work because you don't get all the stuff you need out of them. Whitney Cummings is the smartest climber I've ever seen because she was able to use the people underneath her too, the Mark Mealys, the Angela Bowers.
Oh, no, I mean, and she has the most amazing talent. I've seen it, where she can walk into a room full of 100 people
and figure out who the successful one is and zoom right in and glom right onto them.
And like a Battlestar Galactica droid with those eyes.
Like the Predator. She has like heat vision for success.
But that's a talent I don't have. I mean,
I could manage to anger the one person, but it's also incredible too because some girls who aren't as good as it, I'll say that girl Cassie, some girls try to like split their thing in two where they'll think the most successful guy is the hot guy, which is not how it works. The most successful guy is often 5'3" and bald. You know,
yeah.
Whitney was amazing at sort of sensing that.
And she could make you feel like you were the most important person
Absolutely.
in the world.
Great at it.
And, other girls, I've seen it a million, they think they're going to bone their way to the top.
Which is, again, trying to just go upwards. You don't do it just upwards. You do it downwards, too.
Oh, absolutely. Because, and this just with my former SEAL training background in the art of the schemes and scams.
Those are the girls that get exploited immediately.
Oh, yeah. And they're, it's like, I've seen it a million times. These girls come out here from their small towns, wherever, Steubenville, Ohio. They were the hottest girl there.
Yeah.
Got everything they wanted
Appropriate
there.
you mentioned Steubenville because that's the most famous rape town now in all of Ohio.
Well, I got my finger in the air.
Yeah.
I know where the wind's blowing. And then they come out here thinking they're going to come to the Comedy Store, and get whatever they want. But what you don't...
Joke's on them, too, because the Comedy Store's got nothing.
Well, but what they don't know... But what, or I should say they come to L.A.
Yeah.
Think they're just going to wink, show their tits, and get everything they wanted like they did in Steubenville. But now you're dealing with every other small town girl out here who's... Some are going to be prettier than you.
Yeah.
Or, more skilled at the art of giving a blowjob or whatever.
And in the case of Whitney, that part of it, I never saw it, so I don't know. I can't speak to it. But her climbing was great because it was asexual.
Yeah.
That's a great climber. Is a great and effective climber does it asexually. There might be some other component I'm not seeing. I can't speak to that. All I'm saying is her great climbing was because a really, really good climber doesn't actually, and that's why I'm saying the new girl, Whitney, is really good because she's managed to make everybody feel special. And then that, like, watching her do it, you're like, oh, you're going to move right up.
Oh, yeah, and she's not, and funny. She's, people think I give her, it's like the Josh Martin thing. I give Whitney no lines for this roast. It's all her, when she throws out her lines. And,
yeah.
So it's, if you're around the Comedy Store Tuesday nights, midnight, the Belly Room, it's great. You've been around longer than I have at the store.
Been around for a while. The difference between now and then is that the store late at night in the Belly Room now has a lot of shows, which is a relatively recent phenomenon. And I ascribe it to Adam eBay because he's been really good about it.
The manager there.
That's the manager there. He's not the head manager now, but he was the one person who decided to. Because before Adam, they would try to shut that room down as early as possible so they could get home for whatever reason. But Adam was good about just letting shows run. So there are now a lot of late night shows going. I think Josh Martin might start something. Eric Marino has one. Freddie Lockhart's starting a video game one.
See, like your show was really the precursor, the secret show on Wednesdays, to I think the success of the Rel battle.
That the original of that was, the precursor to us was Don Barris's Ding Dong Show. That was always the first.
Oh, of course.
We did it, but then they did that open mic, and then that open mic led to the roast battle, and then that roast battle has taken it to another level of industry success. That's a big deal.
I guess my question to you was, I don't think in the time that I've been at the store, I've never seen a show in the Belly Room with this amount of energy.
Oh, no. I can't think of a show I've seen in any room that's had this amount of energy.
I know the secret show on Wednesdays with you, Sandy Danto, and Jason Tebow was great. And
but it was like, let's be real. Our show was good, but it was like, 30 people at the most. These guys are getting like standing room only out the back. You can't get into the room.
They're having to put, and when I say security, I use that term loosely, a store employee at the front and at the back entrances to like keep people out.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a show. And one of my favorite store employees, breaking news, I don't even know if you know this. You might. You're like the Matt Drudge of the store. You got sources everywhere. The great Alex Phillips
fired
is no longer an employee at the Comedy Store.
Here's what's ridiculous about that. They have a new manager. I like him, Eric, but he's made a fundamental mistake in assessing the store. I've seen this happen before. Okay, here's the problem. The store is employed by comedians who are, by definition, unreliable. But on the flip side, you get these unreliable, bad employees, but you're able to pay them dirt wages because you have something they need, which is stage time. It is a two-sided system. You have a good that they need, and therefore you can exploit them. In the same way that if you have fruit you need to be picked, you can't go to people who live in this country legally because they'll tell you to fuck yourself. Then you have to go to the underclass. The underclass are comedians. Now, the problem is they're trying to pull out one but not the other. They're trying to treat these comedians now like they're legitimate employees. Right, like they have this fantasy where they're gonna bring on just regular people to work these shitty jobs. But the problem is that regular people don't care about stage time, which comedians do, so they're not gonna be as exploited as much. They also do this thing where they're like writing people up, which is insanity, like treating them like real employees. When you start writing people up, when you start cutting out half of the stage time, which they've done by removing Sunday, what you do is you have a system where comics aren't going to want to work there, or not really care, because you have no leverage over them. And then when you try to get regular people to work there, they'll say, why would I work there for these wages? So they, like Alex, I was told, well, it's legitimate. They fired him. They wrote him up 5 times, and it's like, write him up. What is that? Now, he did not show up to shifts, but that's happened for as long as I've been at the store.
I'm going to miss him.
Oh, he won't be. There's no missing him. He's going to stick around. He'll get all the spots he would have gotten anyway, get the friends and family. It won't make a difference. That's the other thing, too, is they don't give the employees edges in getting spots on those Mondays. So now there's really no reason for them to work there at all.
And I think, I don't know who makes the list for the potluck, but they're driving away a lot of good comics.
Are they really?
Because I really don't know who makes the list, but, I think there's a lot of shenanigans with who gets on and who doesn't.
Well, that makes sense. It's always been like that. When I was doing the open mic, which was years and years and years and years ago, it was like the problem was that there wasn't any shenanigans. So you put up 40 names, there'd be a truly random draw for 20, and then since a good 85% of them were crazy homeless people, those would be the people that would get the spots.
I mean, I get it, I mean, I go back and forth. Like, I love the store and how like the craziness is there, but then I also kind of like a club like Hermosa.
Oh, well, Hermosa is like a different thing.
But the problem is completely different.
You're never going to try. You can never turn the store into something that it isn't. It's always going to be crazy. If they try to turn in the Laugh Factory, which they've kind of tried to do with the people they give spots to, it doesn't quite work. It just doesn't.
No, I mean, I know the store's like the slayer of comedy clubs,
well, it's kind of like the store is very much like right now those bands that had that record deal in 1999, and it's like you can't turn them into the cars, and nobody wants to see them anyway, so they're kind of stuck.
And the Laugh Factory is Bon Jovi. They're just that corporate.
They're always going to be corporate, and they're always going to have a fan base, and people are always going to want to come.
And the store is Rat playing Ukaipa
and dying of AIDS.
Well.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
But we all love it there. I mean,
yeah, it's home until it gets paved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would make a great parking structure for the Andaz.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Although the Andaz have problems, too. Like, that part of the strip, I don't think is financially as viable as it once was. I don't think the hotel's doing as well. I know that they were doing they had that big development project.
The Millennium.
Well, but then that was delayed for years.
Well, I think that...
The collapse.
What's going to be like the 405 renovation? It's just, I mean, the 405's worse, than ever. So, and what the strip, I think the whole strip is dead because.
Yeah. Well, remember when we were like, I remember when I got here, you could not walk. It was too full. Remember they had the rule about no cruising. It was so full and so busy. And then it was, the funny thing is they even like had that rule where they remember the parking rule where after 2 a.m. they towed everybody's cars. They put up confusing signs, towed everybody's cars and they collected money that way. And I think what it did was drive people away.
Well, I mean, and a lot of musically anyway at the clubs, it's a lot of shitty pay to play bands, which are basically the music.
But even in the early 2000s, it was shitty pay to play bands too. Just for whatever reason, it was really full. There were Dublin's, and then it just kind of died.
Well, Dublin's was great, and then but you had the Key Club, Billboard Live. I mean, when it was Gazzari's, it was awesome. But that end of the strip's dead. That's Jay-Z's club now, and I'd never see people there. And so the strip needs. I don't know what it needs, but.
It'll come back because it's cyclical, but I don't know when it comes back, the store will be part of it in the same way that, I'm sure people at Ciro's thought, Big Band's going to come back. And then next thing you know, it was a comedy club there. I'm sure they were resentful as can be.
Well, I think the stores are getting a bit of a resurgence with shows like the Battle thing, and what I love most about the Battle is that people hang after. Like
That is great. Yes, there is a real sense of community there. It's really full. People come out. They'll be talking about it. It's Tuesday nights are really good. Now, my guess is the Battle doesn't have long for the store because once it gets sold to television, that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it would work though. Like in another, like the Belly Room, if you've ever been there, it's like the perfect place for that Battle.
All they need is a small room that looks kind of like the Belly Room. It wouldn't be that tough for them to replicate it.
Like the Knitting Factory. Did you ever do comedy there?
There was a guy who ran shows there, and I remember trying to get on, and I didn't get on. And then later, he ran it with another guy. He came out and said, "Look, I've stole all the money for the shows because I was doing cocaine." And then he came up to me when he was making amends and said, "Look, I'm sorry I didn't get you booked in the show. I actually actively didn't get you booked in the show because I didn't want you to do it. I'm coming to make amends." And I said, "Get the fuck away from me. I never wanted to talk to you then. I don't want to talk to you now." Like, he goes, "No, I'm trying to apologize." I go, "No, I don't want to talk to you. Just get the fuck away." That was the closest I ever came to doing the Knitting Factory.
Well, it was a great show just because the room, like the Belly Room, was very small, and people were on top of you. So when you were killing, it was great. But
yeah, small rooms are really good for comedy. It's the reason the OR is a better vibe than the main room. Although I've done the main room like twice ever, so I couldn't really tell you.
Well, I think Ian Bagg had the best line ever after Mike Magid, this comic. He wasn't doing too well. He was kind of bombing.
Mike Magid is a damn nice guy, but yeah.
A great guy, but he kind of would just only do the same set, and literally in 6 years, I'd walk into the room. That's
always a bad sign, yeah.
And it's he was a bad schmoozer. We were talking about Whitney and both Whitneys.
The saddest thing is a bad climber.
Yeah, he was just too obvious,
because you can't trust them. So they lose both ways.
He tried too hard.
Yeah, what did Ian Bagg say about him?
So imagine bombs for about 10 minutes. It's dead silent in there. It's packed, and Ian gets up there and goes, "Hey, this is a horrible Ian Bagg impression, but hey, give it up for Mike Magid, the guy who stole all the wool out of the Knitting Factory." I mean, just so. And Magid was so delusional and stupid. He walks up to Ian afterwards and goes, "Hey, man, thanks for the compliment." And it was also the Knitting Factory was the place where this one comic, Peter Prenz, who's maybe not the strongest comic, he was bombing one night, and I knew his whole act because he was kind of like Magid-like.
Yeah,
he would just do the same stuff. So I went behind the curtain, and there was a hole in the curtain, perfect size for me to put my dick through. So when I knew the punchline was coming, I'd stick my huge boner out.
And then huge laughs, so he thought he was killing.
Next night, we're at some shitty open mic. He's doing the same set. Nothing. Dead silence.
He's like, "Look, you assholes, this killed at the Knitting Factory last night."
He comes up to me afterwards, like, got this real disheveled look on us. He's like, "Earl, dude, I don't know what happened, man. This act killed last night." Well, there's no curtain behind you.
That is...
I mean, so there's so many characters in the world of LA stand-up,
Yeah, the guy who does his same act over and over and over again that's especially sad because it's also like eventually they decide on something like, "I'm just going to do this, and that's what I got to do. The same thing over and over. I'm going to do this." Like they just settle on it. They're like, "Finally found it. This is the thing."
I mean, I've always tried to change it up. I don't think I've ever done the same set list twice.
Yeah, no, you're good about that. But then some people, I even know people that are very funny that have done that.
Well, you get into a habit of just
My friend Jake, who is very funny and really good off the cuff, did a festival one year, and then they told him, "We're bringing you back next year." So for the next year, he did the open mic and did the same set over and over and over and over again. It was like, "Oh, don't do this." And after a while, you know the set.
Right.
And the ultimate punchline is he did poorly when he went back. It was like, he felt like he had wasted time.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what those festivals are like?
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever audition for Montreal?
I ended up auditioning for it once, years after there was any chance of me getting it. I mean, hell, there was no chance of me getting it anyway. But no, I auditioned for it once. I did poorly and never auditioned. I think I've been auditioned for the Dirty Show, but the problem is I'm not really dirty. Yeah,
you're more cerebral.
Yeah, I get people upset, but it's not with anything dirty. It's just like, if there were a show that like an objectionable show, that would be more my speed. But even then, it was like I did poorly, and that was that.
You should get a one-man show in Montreal. You'd be a superstar after that weekend.
Oh, sure. But here's the problem, too. You can't... Montreal, festivals like that don't work on... all the industry comes to see the new faces. One-man show, nobody gives a fuck. They come to see the new faces. Also, I don't know what my one-man show would be.
Just you taking questions from a bunch of francophones. My phone number is 818-918. That's the best part, and it's very original, man. Like Dave, if you've never seen him, first of all, he stands on top of the balcony or the table at the. I
stole that
store.
from Spanky Hayes, and here's what Spanky Hayes is: a very funny comic, black guy, very funny. Was on Wild and Out, but he's like 5'3". And he would stand on the table, and it would make him like a reasonable height, and it worked great. I'm like, I got to do that. And then when I do it, my head brushes the ceiling.
But it's very, it definitely stands out. I mean, no one does it.
Yeah, everybody. When I was started doing that, everybody would do the Tripoli move, which is one leg on the table, and I was doing it too. You put one leg on the table, and you lean forward, and what it does is it lets you peer through the lights because there are seams in the lights at the Comedy Store, and if you're in the lights, you can't see the crowd, but if you see through them. But then I was like, I'm being Tripoli here, and it didn't quite work for me. But then when I started doing the table, also what it lets me do is, Dice's advice is you always want to move around when you're doing stand-up because otherwise people will get bored with you. He said, move around. It's like having a camera moving. So I noticed the only way I would move around is when I was on the table. I'd walk back and forth, and that was why I did it. Right. Also, it gives an element of, I'm always worried about falling because those tables are very, very unstable. Yeah. And that lets me focus on something other than what I'm talking about.
Well, it's innovative, and the phone texting, the questions.
I haven't done that as texting as much as I used to, but...
I think because idiots like me were asking you to say some pretty racially insensitive things.
No, it wasn't even that. It's just you get bored with anything if you do it enough, and then you... The best part was texting. The people who would text in, it was like great lines. You had great things. Tony Henchcliffe had great lines.
Tebow. Well, he doesn't have a phone.
Great what?
I don't think Tebow has a phone.
Tebow had some really good phone. The best text I ever got in all the time, probably the best line I ever heard at the store was one night we had Marie on, this girl Marie, who had dated Benji Aflalo and also another person at the store. I'm not going to say his name because he never wants me to talk about it.
Okay, no problem.
But the line what Tony said is, Marie smells like the person we know, his nuts and Benji's pool. And it was the perfect line. It was like, and it was such a short text and it encapsulated everything.
And Marie was a waitress at the store, yes. And then very cool girl. But you know, it's like that. This comes back to the advice I give. Female comics. If you want to be taken seriously, you can't fuck.
Well, it's the Hells Angels.
Yeah,
the Hells Angels had that system, and you read the Hunter Thompson book about the Hells Angels.
I did not.
It's an amazing book. He wrote the second half in 48 hours because he said he thought at that point that publishers' deadlines meant something.
Right.
So he had Load Up at Speed, wrote the second half, and first half is very like straight laced, but then the second half sort of anticipates the Hunter Thompson style. But according to Hunter Thompson, women in the Hells Angels work under two principles. That you can be one of two people. You could be an old lady or you could be a mama. Now, old ladies are somebody dating someone. Like such and such as old lady. Now, mamas belong to everybody at the group. And he said, you can be an old lady for one guy, then you can be an old lady for another guy. But at some point, if you date, say, a third guy or just too many, it's sort of amorphous, you become a mama and then you belong to everyone. He said, you can go from an old lady to a mama, but you can never go from a mama to an old lady. And that's the risk that female comics run at the store is if you date too many people, you become a mama.
Yeah, and then you're done.
Yeah, and it's not even like you're done. People have made moves past it.
But it's very hard.
I can name talk show hosts that have been known for having sex with lots of male comics, but it's not even. It's very hard. It's like figure out what you want.
You're right. I mean, it's not. Maybe you're not. It's very hard though. I think like once you get that reputation of a chuckle fucker. I guess.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we've known a few that have. I think a good rule is once you break the 10 barrier, you really are a legend.
Well, that was the best. I remember one of our first true bonding conversations was in the parking lot of the store, which really should be the site of a talk show. I mean, so many great topics get covered there. When we tried to add up the number that two particular female comics the number of people they had slept with.
Oh yeah, the funny thing is when you have that, like, it helps to have a couple people, because there's always somebody that comes up. You're like, oh, that person, I didn't know that.
Well, it's like the roast battle, tit for tat section almost, where you had the one girl, I had the other girl. I'm like, okay, let's start. You name a name, I'll name a name, and it literally went on for 5 minutes before we ran out of names.
Absolutely.
James Painter.
James Painter showed up on a lot.
I think he was on both those lists. Mike Black. Really?
Yeah, I remember. I know exactly. Yeah, I forgot about Mike Black.
It just went on where we each had named about 12 comics each, but it's but for male comics, it's like, I don't know if it helps your career, but it's like you definitely get.
It depends on how you do it, because if you are a male comic who's good looking, then that's the stud thing. But there is an element of if you look like me, say, and slept with a lot of female comics, which I have not, and you did it like through. I can't think of it. That's not how I do it, but like the guys who do it by exploiting them, they don't get the respect. Like the guys who say, "I'm going to help out your career," then they're kind of treated. Not stud, not slut, kind of in the middle, like weirdos.
See, you are a good-looking guy, and I'm not a bone jammer.
It's very kind of you to say.
But you've got a great look. Like, I think you and I are similar looking from the standpoint of I don't think either one of us is model looking, but I think
we have. You know what it is we fit, and yours is maybe a more broadly palatable one. But we both fit types. If you are a type, and you are an extreme version of that type, then you will do better than anybody would ever think, because somebody will like that type and think, well, you're the best thing, But
I think you have a great confidence about you. Like, you walk around the store, and I don't know if I have this, but it's almost like a Rick Rude strut.
This is the weird thing about that is my brother was saying that. He was like saying, people think you're smart, David, but I don't think he was smart. I think he was confident. And I'm like, well... I don't really see that at all. But if I've managed to trick my brother, then I feel like I've done, But I have very little confidence.
Well, but that's the whole illusion. You got to act like Jeff Richards told me, and this was, I think, more than stand up. It was more for stand up than what we're talking. He's like, fake it till you make it, and it's a great saying. Like
Jeff Richards, like that guy. I remember the story was before SNL. He was talking to somebody. He goes, people are going to say I'm arrogant now that I've got SNL, but I've always been arrogant. And everyone's like, yeah, you have always been arrogant.
And he's stand up advice. He's like, you got to act like every word out of your mouth is the word of God.
That's absolutely true when it comes to being on stage. There's no question there, because funny or not funny, implicit. Like people say, well, I would like to do stand-up, but I'm not funny. And it's like, who cares? Yeah. It doesn't matter. The absolute necessity for stand-up is not being funny. Hell, look at all the people that are really successful that aren't funny. You have to feel like you're the one person in that room who should be talking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you have that, then that's what you need. That's the difference between, think of all the people we knew growing up who were really funny that are doing other stuff.
Oh, yeah, probably like Painter.
Painter was very funny, very, very funny, but ultimately he didn't quite have that confidence that he should have had.
But I would love to be a talent, not coordinator, a booker on a television show and book the people I think are funny, because I think the funniest people we both know. Well,
the joke is that talent bookers don't book the people they think are funny. They book the people that other people think are funny, because just like all executive positions, you're never living alone. You're always in the middle of a group of people, and you have to be able to justify your decisions to not get fired.
But you're right. But I would just love to expose the world to Tebow.
Absolutely,
Angelo before he died.
It's funny. The last thing I said to Angelo, because I talked to him the night he died, and that was 2013, right? It was last year, right?
No, I think it was 2 years ago.
I think it was 1 year, but it might be two. Let's assume it was 2 years ago, though. Whatever it was January 4th, like 2012, say. And I talked to him on the phone that night because he had been out of town. He came back, and and then I said, you know what, man? 2012 is going to be your year. Wow. He was dead within 6 hours. And that shows you the level of prognostication that I have.
That was like the Warrior giving his final speech on Raw.
Well, it was even worse because remember, Angelo beat cancer. So it would be like, it wasn't like he wasn't coming back saying like, oh, I might live forever. It was like, man, finally things are good. Like I remember having the crowd like, because before he went into surgery, I had we called, left the message on his voicemail, and I had the crowd in the OR, which is like 20 people, all say "Get better, faggot."
Huh. I mean, yeah, he was a great.
He really was a great guy.
I mean,
And you think of all the people you'd love to see die in a car wreck. And just so many people that I would not bat an eye, that I would smile if I heard they were dead. And Angelo was a good guy, and that's the thing too. He's also like universally beloved.
Oh yeah, no, you would never find one. I mean, like as liked as I am, he makes me look hated.
He and Gerard Carmichael had that quality. I remember once I drove by. It's like when I drove by, I saw them, and then I'm like, "Where are you guys?" They were at a bus stop. Where are you guys headed? And they were heading somewhere, so I gave them a ride, and then now Gerard is very successful, and Angelo is dead.
Right, so I mean, Gerard's like
great guy.
He's so fucking
really
nice.
Talented
You're
too.
like, you can't be this nice. There's got to be some angle. But
yeah,
he really
what I
is.
want is I want him to get famous, and he's super talented. I want to get famous just so I can watch him become an asshole. I've told people that I want to see that. I think it'd be really entertaining to see like really asshole Gerard, because it would just be so interesting. Like, how does he become like a famous asshole?
See, I'm the same way with Jared Levin. I want to see him.
Oh, I see exactly how he'd be.
But see, I want to see him with money.
Yeah, no, he'd be. Well, you wouldn't see him with money for very long because you'd see a lot of strippers with a lot of money.
That's why I want to hang out with him.
Oh yeah, like Jared
him.
Levin's he would be such a exploited pussy freak. He would have money for like 2 days. Some girl would show up, and he would get her pregnant like that quick, and then there would be goodbye money.
I mean, he might be the most gullible person I've ever met. Like,
Yeah.
There's one particular older comic who's, he's a gay comic who has a predatory liking towards younger comics, and
everybody either has a story about them or their roommate being invited to this guy's hot tub.
And one night, this older comic took Jared to Denny's and was like deep throating sausages in front of him and like giving him a back rub. And I told him the next day, I'm like, dude, you just be careful around this guy. He's a very
he's a predator.
There's nothing wrong with being gay, but this guy is like.
Well, no, honestly, there's nothing wrong with being gay at all. It's not like you're saying, hey, be careful, he's going to rape you. He wasn't. It's like, be careful, he's going to fuck you. Would you have been happy to say to a girl?
Oh, I would. I tell girls up there all the time, and some people might think this is cock blocking. It's really not, because I'm not interested in 99% of these.
Well, technically, it still is cock blocking. It's just not to your benefit.
Well, I mean, I think it's cock blocking, maybe with good intentions.
Possibly, yeah.
Another
thing too is that by and large, that warning only makes the guy seem more glamorous.
Well, you're right, because the next day I walk into the. After my warning, to the Comedy Store kitchen, and this particular comic is giving Jared a back rub.
Of course.
And I'm like, Jared, what are you doing?
Jared got a ride down the West Coast based on thwarted sexual yearning. So that guy he's managed to do okay. He knows where.
Oh no, I mean
where his bread is buttered.
But he's like kind of like, I think he's a little bit. He reminds me of me in the sense of he plays a dumb character. But I think he's a little smarter than most people think he is. And
well, yeah, I mean, honestly, so is every carbon-based life form. No, I don't think Jared is dumb. He's just like, he's got his own way of thinking. But it is funny that, that predatory comic who people are fine with, when he was successful, he must have had a lot more success in predation, too.
Well, I used to, when I first started in comedy in the early 2000s, I would do this open mic / semi-booked show at the Cock and Bull in Venice. Which was
remember that, yeah.
Really cool vibe there back in the day. And he would go there and he would do a lap. He'd be like Fabio at Equinox. He'd like circle the room once.
Fabio does that at Equinox?
But with chicks. And
would that work?
I think, it does for Fabio.
Really?
Who's actually quite a nice guy.
Wait, Fabio still gets chicks?
Oh my God, he's unbelievable.
Really?
I see him along with Paulie See Paulie at Equinox.
Fabio is kind of like the '90s Paulie when you know. So he must be doing great, but he's still getting women.
Oh yeah, because he's still. I mean, I'm 45. He's got to be at least 5 years older than me. So I'm assuming he's in his 50s. He still looks great. Full head of hair, no plugs, extensions.
Really?
I'm sure he gets it colored, and he looks great.
That's not extensions.
Oh no, that's his real hair.
Really?
So you know, his
also, in much of the same way that Paulie, if you have girls grow up thinking of you as one thing, then when they become adults, they still think of you that way. By and large, you could still, you know, Paulie gets girls that remember when he was famous back in the day and still think of him as appealing. Fabio has to be getting some of that "I remember you" pussy.
Yeah, I remember it's not butter. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was just in my friend's really funny movie Dumbbells, which, Dumbbells is really funny if you've ever belonged to a gym because they just play on the stereotypes of, like one of the stereotypes was the older kind of good-looking guy who's holding on to the guy who actually played that part was the first male supermodel.
Who was it?
And he got abducted by a cult in real life. I don't remember his name, but very good-looking guy.
It doesn't surprise
Hoyt or something.
The Hoyt Wilhelm? No.
Yeah, it's something.
He was the guy. Yeah, I know exactly. I think he went to Princeton.
Yeah, that's this guy, and he was like not the first Marlboro man, but he was like
he's like a good-looking blonde guy. Yeah,
very good-looking, and he played. If you've ever been to a gym member or been a member of the gym, you've seen this guy that Hoyt was playing. You know, you could tell this guy was a stud in his 20s, but now he's approaching 50, and he's like, blow drying his balls in the locker room, and it's really funny.
What
movie.
was Fabio in that movie?
Fabio just basically played Fabio,
yeah.
and
he is a stereotype unto himself.
Oh, he's great. I mean,
he comes to Equinox. He does
a lap,
and he pick?
Girls come to him.
Really?
And it's the same thing with Paulie. Paulie's even funnier to watch at Equinox.
Paulie gets girls coming to him at Equinox?
He'll be in the most far eastern corner of the room. And the second story at Equinox is very big. I mean, I'm assuming it's, 30 to 40,000 square feet. And it's all kinds of equipment. And Paulie will be doing his stomach crunches or texting on the bike. And the minute a hot chick walks in the room, he looks up instantly. I mean, he's got like this
incredible sense for it,
like eighth sense of just a hot chick in the room, and it's so funny. And they come to him. So
good for Paulie.
Good for Paulie. I mean, which is funny because I see him at Equinox and I see him at the store. He looks at me like I know this guy, but I've never really talked to him. So.
Paulie has always been very nice to me. He's the reason I got passed to the store. You know that.
I don't. Well, I'd like to know how you got passed at the store.
It was a complete fluke, as it always is. I worked there for a couple of years. Now, my biggest fear was getting fired because a comic named Ron Swallow had worked for the store for a couple weeks. Said, "Hey, Mitzi, come watch my set. Which bad move right there to begin with, whoever you are. She made her go watch the set in the belly room. She watched it and said, "Oh, you're fired." So my biggest fear was that she would see me and then fire me. And at that point, when I was working there on Sundays, she would come in every couple of weeks, see the employees, see the showcasers. And if you got in front of her as a showcase, you get passed at any point. So for 2 years, I refused to go up in front of her. I always move it around so I wouldn't have to go up. Well, it went like that for 2 years. And I got to a point where I was like, I wanted to showcase just to host the open mic. That's all I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to get passed, but I wanted to get the open mic. And I was going to go up one night, but Judy Chinchado bumped me, as it turned out. She bumped me, bombed, Mitzi left. Okay. A couple weeks later, I get my chance again. And Mitzi is just having a good day emotionally. She passed 4 people, and she passed me. I was one of the earliest to get passed out of my employee class, even though it took me 2 years to do it. And the reason she passed me was, at that point, she only came in every couple weeks, so people would always jump and like talk to her. And sometimes she wouldn't hear your set because she was too busy like talking to other people. But Paulie was sitting next to her. And when I got on stage, Paulie goes, "Mom, you got to pay attention to this guy. Mom, it's funny. Mom." And that's why I got passed. I did a set. Didn't go particularly well, but she liked whatever. And then I got passed. That's great. And that's how I got passed. And then the joke is I only got to host the open mic like 4 times ever. Like I got passed to be a comic, but never got to host the open mic.
Well, I mean, the store's wacky.
Yeah, I wasn't unhappy about that, but I wanted one thing, I got something better.
Well, you are one of the true kings of late night there.
No, it's just I'm somebody who goes up at the end of the night. That's not the same. Being a king of late night is like saying, David, you really rule that garbage truck. The way you stand on it.
Well, I told you this the other night. Tommy, the talent coordinator, was there when you were up the other night in front of a packed house, and the look on his face was priceless. He was like a proud dad watching his kid hit a homer.
Now, here's the thing. He said, well, I'm going to start getting you up 11 o'clock spots, better spots. And I'm telling you, Earl, I guarantee you, the spots will come on Thursday. I will have at 12:30 or 12:45, same as I ever did. Because if you're looking for long-term memory or short-term memory from a guy who smokes that much pot, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I love-hate relationship with Tommy. I mean, he's cordial to me, but still trying to crack the exterior, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, it's anybody treating that like anything that should be taken seriously is ridiculous. It's like you get up, you do your spot, you leave. I got lucky on Sunday because it was Easter Sunday. Oh, it was Saturday, and it was Easter Sunday was the next day, and for some reason it was really full. I think because everybody was taking off the next day because it was Easter Sunday, and it was a really not religious crowd. That's the busiest I've seen the store late at night on a Saturday for a while.
Well, I remember walking by the room and going, "Oh my God, there's tons of people up there, and Dave's on." And then I walked in. I mean, it was packed. And
yeah, it was full, and it was beyond full too. It was also full with people that weren't because sometimes you go up and it's full, but people are ready to leave. It's like there's different phases of the night. That's another thing too, is that people will see someone going up at 11 o'clock and think he's fundamentally better than somebody go up at 12:30 because of the way the crowd responds. But it's like that's a different crowd. Even the same number of people. And it's easy to say, oh, yeah, but people are wired so that they believe in the response of others. So that you would think, oh, well, logically, this guy is creating this environment. But what's really creating it is another hour and a half of drinking and people who are ready to get out and drive home.
Yeah, which is why I always love Don Barris closing it out, because he gets laughs out of just completely beat up audiences.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing in the world. And it's like, yeah.
I don't think anyone else in that place.
People will see you walking people at 12:30 and think it's your fault, and it's like, I'm not walking them. What's walking them is their babysitter.
Right. Yeah.
Their car, they've got a lot, is they're thinking about they had to wake up for tomorrow. It's like all these external factors. The least important thing in the world to them is some dude on a stage they've never met.
Well, it's like last night. I forget who the comic was. They were doing really well. And literally, he got off and brought up Byron Bowers, who's a great comic. And like 70% of the crowd left before Byron even said his first joke. And it's like,
I think that was me. I brought up Byron Bowers.
No, it wasn't you. It was like it was a white comic. I'm seeing like it wasn't you. Maybe it was 2 nights ago. Then
2 nights ago. Yeah. Sometimes people everybody leaves, and then you think, well, did this person drive everyone away? It's like, man, people get up. Another thing too is that people will get up, see other people leaving, and people see other people leaving. Oh, I got to go, which is why often the last people left at a show are the people in the very front because they can't see the people behind them leaving.
I just always love Don's line when he gets up there and a lot of the crowd's leaving. He's like, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Why don't you throw a log of shit at me while you're leaving?
I always tell people, hey, look, don't leave now. I'm the last person you'll see, and nobody wants that. I'll be what you think. If you leave now, I'm what you're going to think of on that drive home. It's not going to be good. I said, wait 3 minutes and then leave during the next comic because that'll really have more of an impact.
I like it when sometimes the crowd's leaving, and not because of you, but just like you said, they want to go home, and you're like, thank you. I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire.
Yeah. When people leave during, that's a real pet peeve. They leave at the beginning of my set. It's like, hey, man, you got to go. But you leave during my set, I'm definitely praying for your death if I'm in a bad mood.
What was the one time there was a fat girl in the audience who was kind of heckling you? I think she was from Australia, and you said something like, even your back is fat. You really gave it to her. Like,
oh, the worst thing I've ever said to an audience member, it was along these lines, is I'm on stage, and it's a night everybody was doing great. I was working as an employee, and everybody is just murdering. just murdering. Ari's hosting. Jay London kills before me. I go up and I'm bombing. And it's a 3-minute set. I'm like, how am I bombing in 3 minutes? But I bomb immediately. And I bomb for 3 minutes. And some girl says, I go, what, do you have something to say? I go, I won't say anything to you. And then she goes, your light's on. And that is always a pet peeve of mine. And I said, well, it's nice to see the diabetes hasn't made you go blind yet.
That maybe that was it.
And the crowd goes, boo! I mean, they are booing. They're boo! And I laughed and laughed. And I go off the stage, feeling good about myself. And the girl goes to the guy working the ticket booth to complain about me. And she's in tears. And she goes to the guy working the ticket booth to complain. And the guy working the ticket booth is me. So she goes, what you said about me is fucked up. I go, that's the onstage me. The offstage me is totally different.
What?
And she goes, it's fucked up. I go, onstage, offstage different. And then I looked away.
Well, I love, because, most people aren't going to be as smart as you who are heckling you. So they get kind of aggro and almost like a situation type of response. Oh, you talking to me? And then the way you cerebrally just fucking zing them, and they're not smart enough to take the zinger. It makes it
I've
even
done
funnier.
a lot less of it than, I built a reputation on it, and I've just done it a lot less. I'm not sure why. But if they come at me, I'm absolutely happy to engage them. But I've done a lot less of beating on crowds, I guess because, I feel like I've established that, and I did enjoy it, but then, like anything, you do something new. But nobody's aware of it because it's like once you establish it, it's like that Mark Twain quote, the easiest way to sleep in is have a reputation for waking up early. I have a reputation for waking up real early.
Well, see, I like to take the opposite approach of just zinging them with a line from an 80s action movie, and they really...
Oh, yeah, Ravishing Earl Skakel, zinging them with the wrestling line, a classic. Have you been doing Ravishing Earl?
No, I only do it with you, to be honest.
What about
with
Don?
you.
You've been doing it with Don.
No, I don't think Don appreciates the...
When you get naked. Don doesn't seem to like that.
I don't think Don is as big as a wrestling fan as you are.
Yeah, that could be.
So he doesn't really appreciate the references and
Also, Don, I like being the Mean Gene Okerlund to that. Yeah. I also do enjoy. Ravishing Earl, for those who haven't seen it, leads into Earl's impression of Buffalo. Is Buffalo Bob or Buffalo Bill?
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and that impression involves full frontal nudity. And the best is that you'll tuck your dick and balls between your legs, and it's not visible to the crowd until the end, but to the people on the side, it's completely visible. So I've seen that thing so many times. I feel like I delivered you. I've seen your dick and balls so many times. But what's funny is Adam eBay was sitting off to the side one night, and he goes, "Oh God!" He could see it. He goes, "I'm like, Adam, you can see that every time."
Well, I mean, the Comedy Store is also the same venue that comedians show each other their dick pics like baseball cards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen so many dick pics.
I mean, Jamar Neighbors showed me his. I showed him mine. Jeff Scott comes in. It's like you literally at one point had 4 comics in a circle in the patio at the store showing each other their dick pics. Like, hey, here's my Dave Parker rookie.
Jamar's method of showing the dick pic is really fiendishly clever. Have you heard this? Jamar will have he has 2 pictures on it. The first picture is his home screen, right? And the second picture is dick pic. Now he'll put his home screen on and he'll hand the phone and goes, "Oh, my phone is frozen. Could you help me out? My phone's frozen." Now the first thing people do is they swipe at a frozen screen, right? And all it does is swipes to the next picture, which is Jamar's dick pic.
Which is a massive dong.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's pretty big. So I do the opposite, where I ask people if they want to see my new commercial headshot.
Another classic, yeah, another classic.
And I really draw it out. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm trying to, stand-up's not really working for me right now. I was told that, if you get better commercial pictures, you get a couple national commercials that help your stand-up. And I'm just, I found this guy in Backpage, and will you look at it? Just give me your honest opinion on like if this would sell like Budweiser or Nike. And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm just, what do you think? And I'll show them the phone, and the look is priceless. It's like watching the 2 girls, 1 cup reactions.
I've seen Tebow showed me Ari's dick pic, and he goes, "What do you notice about it?" I'm like, he's wearing 2 left socks. He goes, "That's exactly what I was going to point out."
So Such is life at the Comedy Store. You must get there. It's the rock and roll comedy club of the city.
Here's the way the story is, and I assume our interview is about over, and if it isn't, it should be, because I feel like we've tapped out. But I will say this about the store is like, people will come there because they're not sure if they should be at the Improv or the store, and then a lot of people are like, I'll never come back, but the people that come back.
We were at an hour and 34 minutes.
That's about right.
Most ones I do are like under an hour, just because you run out of things to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, your history is. I mean, we could do another hour, but like the Rat song.
I feel bad because I feel like if I had something to promote, it would help listenership. Like you know what, David Arquette, that was a great get. That's going to get you. Has that gotten you some listeners?
Oh yeah, I mean the Tawny and David Arquette episodes. It helps the other ones. Like when I posted the Tawny one, I think Gail's was the one previous to that, so they were like,
let's listen again. Yeah, Tawny is like this. She's got great stories. David Arquette, which I have not listened to yet, great stories. Jared
really
Levin had a great story. He's not famous, but that's one that people should listen to just in general.
Well, I'm working on. I really started this not to interview celebrities, but
they
do get the numbers.
Yeah, I feel like people, once they figure out you'll get a base of Earl heads. Like people that are excited. But seriously, you got to have it so that when people search for Earl Skakel on iTunes, because nobody's looking for fucking Inappropriate Earl. That's just, it's the title, but just you got to have,
How do you do that though? And I know that people,
I don't know. Talk to Ari Manis.
Oh, yeah, Ari Manis,
Actually, wait. Do you have Earl Skakel as a search term in iTunes?
Well, I do, but my comedy album pops up, Earl Alive.
Well, I think you can.
Which might be the worst recorded comedy album.
No, I could name you a worse one. I attached the Earl Skakel term to your podcast.
Okay.
The worst one was, remember those people were, there was a period there where a couple of comics had comedy albums that were put into gas stations up and down the California.
Right.
And they were recorded without an audience. They were just recorded at home, and then they put a laugh track in. Wow. Like Painter did one, I remember.
I probably should have done that because I had basically what I have now, the Zune recorder.
Yeah.
But I was such a moron. I had the mics.
You didn't mic the audience.
Well, I didn't put the money into that. Miking the audience is not fair. It's not incredibly expensive, but, it does involve some work. So I got the Zune recorder, but I had the mics facing away from the audience. It's very muzzled, but
Also, the problem is if you have like a point source recorder, which often is like any microphone, then it won't get crowd noise nearly as well as for a diffuse crowd noise as much as just one specific speaker, which is you. Yeah. That's why when you listen to recordings of your set, crowd always sounds not as loud as it did to you.
And then when I was opening up for Rob Schneider, they would most of these places would tape off their system, which sounded amazing.
Yeah.
But most of these places
they don't mic the audience.
Well, they do, but my intro was horrible. Usually, they would just butcher my name and throw me out there. Skokel, Eric Skunkel. The biggest gig I ever did with him was some beautiful, like $100 million theater in not Modesto, Santa Rosa.
Yeah,
I think it was the last place Carlin performed at. Where all the big specials were filmed for a while, and the guy just said, "Get out there." No introduction at all. So you hear
"Get out there" would be a good name for your comedy album.
Yeah, get out there. So you should have been here last week. So it's like, I don't know, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still just trying to figure it out. 15 years.
Here's the one thing I do know, and that is nobody cares about. And I don't mean just in general. Nobody cares about your comedy album. Even the successful ones don't sell a lot. It's just a forum that's dead, and that's fine. But it's like nobody cares about albums.
Well, I just wanted to. I probably rushed getting it out there just to say
that's not a bad idea. But it's like, you know what? The podcast is the comedy album, the way that the mixtape is the
right. I was more proud of the artwork on the album cover, which I'm surprised Gene Simmons hasn't sent me a cease and desist.
That's when you'll know you've made it, when Simmons gets upset with you.
Well, if you have a chance, go look at it on iTunes.
Do you have it up on your website? This should be attached to our podcast.
I don't even have a website.
If anybody listens all the way through. Wait, you don't have a website hosting this fucking podcast?
I'm on SoundCloud, and which when you
Oh, you have your own little SoundCloud website.
When you upload on Sound, well, I do have my SoundCloud page.
So this podcast has a page.
Yeah,
put the picture up on that page.
So it's Kiss Alive 2, but instead it just says Earl Alive 2. And what the great thing about Kiss Alive 2 was they had the coolest pictures of a sweaty and bloody Gene Simmons, and then Paul looked like an angel because he had this purple glow behind him. Ace looked bombed out of his mind, and Peter looked like he didn't know where he was. So I just replaced those pictures with similar pictures of me.
That's a great idea.
But I don't know. You're a smart guy. Is that copyright infringement? Me basically copying?
No, I mean, honestly, you'd have to ask a lawyer, but I'd say no.
Because I was so hopeful, and this shows you where my delusion is at, that the album would take off and I'd be like this big fucking not celebrity, but like, oh my God, Earl's album's great. I had a second album done off the Kiss album Animalize, which was a great album.
Earl, why don't you just do this for your podcast?
Well, you're right, but I'm giving you a taste of what, you know.
Yeah.
It was called Earlize. It was so stupid. And then I did another one.
Earl, you have the drawings have been done?
I was basically ripping off every Kiss album cover.
Then why don't you put some of these up for your podcast?
You're right. I
know part of you thinks, well, I'm saving these for my future albums, but you got them done. You might as well do it.
And then Lick It Up was Earl It Up. Of course, Animalize, if you Kiss fans are listening, is the only album with the great Mark St. John on guitar. Rest in peace.
Well, the people that listen, my fan base and Kiss's fan base, that's the same fan base. So I'm guaranteeing they're going to know these references.
And Lick It Up, obviously, the entire album written by the great Vincent Cusano, otherwise known as the Vinnie Vincent, who I'm obsessed
Vinnie
with.
Vincent Invasion?
The Vincent Invasion.
You wrote the whole album?
Wrote the whole album. It was making $500 a week because Gene and Paul were like, "Hey, you're not a full-time member. You're a hired gun. Just shut up and write the songs and play guitar." And
if you write the songs, don't you get the writing credit?
Well, I think he gave his publishing. He didn't. He wasn't the smartest guy.
Oh, you know the story about Dolly Parton, right?
Uh-uh.
Okay, this is one last story, and then.
Oh, please! I'm not right.
No. I feel like something to close on it. Dolly Parton had a song she wrote, and it was a song. It had she recorded, not a big deal. Colonel Tom Parker comes to her and says, Elvis wants to record this song. She goes, great, because Elvis recorded your song. You're going to make a lot of money. He goes, okay, but the deal is Elvis has to split publishing with you. He has to get half the songwriting rights. That's the deal. If Elvis does a song, he gets publishing rights. She said, no, I don't think so, which seems like a crazy decision. I mean, it's Elvis. Half a love is better than none, right? That song was I Will Always Love You.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And remember, Whitney Houston recorded it. And
my God.
Yeah, this is years before. Whitney Houston Dolly Parton made all that money off that song because she didn't give up publishing rights.
Well, I know I'm always fascinated by songwriting and publishing. Desmond Child.
Oh, that guy made so much money.
But I mean, he, to me, the most impressive thing about him was the variety of acts he wrote for.
Yeah, like both of those guys. That guy was in Chic, right?
No, Desmond Child's the guy.
I'm thinking of Niles Rodgers.
Right.
Yeah.
Chic, the great. I was talking.
That guy made a lot of money too.
Right?
That guy produced Like a Virgin.
Oh, I mean that's.
Well, what did Desmond Child? He wrote like a bunch.
Well, he wrote for Ricky Martin, all his hits. He wrote for Hanson, all their hits, and they did have a couple hits.
Yeah.
All of Aerosmith's comeback hits.
Yep.
Any Kiss hit in the '80s. Leanne Rimes, Cher. So his publishing is just amazing.
And that's also when publishing was a big deal, because now I have to think that the songwriters hurt the most by the change in the music industry, because music acts can still make money touring, but I don't think that the writers get the taste of the touring money the way they got the split of the recording proceeds.
Well, and probably most of his money comes from the Bon Jovi catalog.
Oh my God.
He basically wrote.
Oh Jesus! Those guys sold so many albums.
"Slippery When Wet Alone" was like 14 million copies.
Yeah, that was back in the day
Living
when
on a Prayer
you could sell 14 million.
But his thing is, if he changes one word in the song, or if he gives you like, it's very much the Elvis. He gets full pub. Like if he says "Living on a Prayer," well, I gave you the on word. I get.
You're putting him in.
Whatever the
smart. Probably he learned that the hard way.
And Diane Warren, who is basically the female Desmond Child.
Yeah, remember all those Aerosmith hits? How Can I Live? Like that was like she made in the 80s and 90s. She was so successful. She'd get mentioned on like Casey's Top 40.
Well, I mean, my
To
favorite
be known to the average fan as just a writer is amazing.
Well, here's the funny thing is that like I bought the Desmond Child album Discipline. I know she had a solo album out. You think, these great songwriters, they're going to have killer albums their own.
No.
And they
You know
they
why?
never took off.
Because music is like comedy. The words do not matter.
You're right.
They just simply don't matter.
But if you ever want to see an Academy Award winning performance in acting, go YouTube the Desmond Child video for Love on a Rooftop where he has to act like he's enjoying kissing a girl. That is acting of the highest caliber because he's. I don't think I'm breaking any barriers here. He's a
I'll tell you, I'm straight, and I would have a hard time kissing a girl on camera. It'd be really awkward. It'd be like, what,
Well, he's a well-known gay man. Out.
Yeah, so that must be really weird. Also, he hasn't done that. He hasn't done a lot of acting or kissing of girls. So those two things together.
Well, those '80s videos were just the best.
They really were. And the joke was they were so expensive, and who paid for them? The artists completely. The record company never paid a dime.
Well, they made no sense, especially the '80s metal videos.
Yeah.
Like what the Stryper video for "Always There for You" starts out with them in their bumblebee outfits, standing on a street corner like four hookers, and then a helicopter comes by, picks them up, takes them to this.
Think about just the helicopter, how expensive it was just to have that.
Had to be $50,000 just to rent it for the day.
So
it takes them to this sound stage. They do this beautiful, elaborate production of the song. The helicopter just takes them away, and it's like you didn't really need to do the helicopter scene.
But some director had that as a vision, or the band did, and then next thing you know.
Or Dawkins' video for Just Got Lucky. They're in an abandoned lumber yard. And at the end of the video, a helicopter rises behind the drummer. And it had nothing to do with the song, nothing to do with the storyline of the video.
Helicopter, man. That's the joke, is that in the early 80s, videos could make people huge if they were just having a video. But by the late 80s, everybody had one, so it's such an inflationary market. So these are videos people maybe saw 3 times on MTV, and then that was that.
Well, MTV made the 80s metal bands. I mean, Rat... They had Milton Berle in their first 2 videos, and Tawny Katane.
Milton Berle was in a Rat video?
Rat, he was in 2 of them. He was in Round and Round.
It's got to be his grandson was
Marshall was the manager of Rat.
Oh, there we go. Is that exactly his son was the manager? Or
I think
their
he said his nephew, niece.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't be a niece, but he was in drag in the back from in the Round and Round video. And
the genesis of that had to be like, do you know any celebrities? Well, our manager got Milton Berle.
My uncle was,
like I can't imagine any rock music fan would even know who he was.
Well, but if you ever have seen that video, he's fucking great in it. He plays this dirty old man at a dinner in a tuxedo, and then the camera goes back around, and he plays the wife. And there's a great YouTube video of him in drag on the set. And some, producers like, hey, Mr. Berle, we need you to over here for the camera. He's like, God damn it, I'm Milton fucking Berle. You don't tell me where to go. Let's just make this fucking dumb video. And it was just great. So, I mean, but you're right. I mean, the Cars probably don't have a career if it wasn't for MTV. I mean, their videos were...
early 80s, but then by the late 80s, the problem is then so many people were making, I guarantee people making expensive videos that MTV was going, nah. And then they just spent a lot of money on something that was just not going to,
Yeah. And
early 80s, MTV didn't have as much leverage. They had to put pretty much everything on.
Well, I mean, it's like I always see Nick Youssef wearing the Pirate Radio shirt.
Yeah.
And if you ever lived in L.A., Pirate Radio was 100.3 on your dial. They didn't have any, their first, literally month, they had 3 albums or CDs, whatever they were using.
Yeah, like a new TV station playing Twilight Zone reruns.
And they would play Bon Jovi's Born to Be My Baby, literally 3 times an hour. Because that's all they had. So, but that's, LA in the 80s. You missed out of an era. Dave Taylor, how can people find you on Twitter?
At this David Taylor.
At this David Taylor. Do you do the Facebook, or do you how do you like people to contact you?
Just Twitter.
All right, at this David Taylor. This is one of the longest recorded episodes of Inappropriate Earl. Dave Taylor's a good friend. And go to the Comedy Store. He's there a lot. He's also at the Improv, too.
No, never at the Improv. Just the store.
Well, all right. Well, just go to the Comedy Store late night. It's unlike any club you'll see.
Might not see me perform, but you'll probably get in a conversation with me, and that is just as good.
And let me tell you something right now. If you've ever been in a conversation for Dave Taylor longer than 10 seconds, that means he likes you. Because if he doesn't, you won't. He'll be like a ghost.
I'll walk away.
Disappears into the darkness of the store, and he'll never talk to you again.
Never to be found again.
Big thanks for Dave Taylor for coming. This is Inappropriate, Earl. We're on SoundCloud, and for you Steve Jobs nut swingers, you can still go on iTunes, leave a review, whatever. I need the help. Fake it till you make it. Next week, this episode will be up. Upcoming episodes, we've got Stephen Piercy from Rat coming in, and that's true.
Really?
Yes.
You should ask him about this Christina Applegate picture because it's so clear that she doesn't want to physically touch him at all.
Well, that never bothered him.
Well, you look like he's all into this picture, and she looks like she is posing with a crazed fan. Wow. Look at how she's not touching him at all. Her body language says, I have a stiff smile, get away from me.
But I bet someone, her handler or manager, is like, hey, this guy's the singer in the hottest band right now.
Yeah.
Go fucking take a picture with him. So, because that's, probably 87 when Rat was still...
It was 1987 exactly, yes.
They were still, pumping, and then, grunge came about and swallowed up all these bands like Pac-Man.
It was a tsunami that ended their careers.
Well, I remember Warrant was with the same record label as Alice in Chains, and I think Janie Lane, who's sadly departed, I think he tells the story of walking into Warner Brothers lobby, and there's this huge, monstrous, mammoth, beyond life-size plaque of Cherry Pie, which was a huge video back in the day. And he came back 2 weeks later, and there was this huge mammoth life-size plaque of the, I guess it would be Alice in Chains' debut album.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, wow. So then the next Warren album, they cut off all their hair and were wearing flannel. And it's like, man, blank, please.
Yeah.
So the 80s were its era. You'll never see it again. You guys listening to Justin Bieber and Lana Del Rey, go YouTube some Rat videos, Bon Jovi, Poison, Twisted Sister. Get the real taste of music. And we'll see you soon on Inappropriate Earl. Yeah. R.I.P. Warrior, you're missed.